Ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust your listening devices. We are live here on Twitch for the first time ever at twitch.tv/CKCC online. Hopefully you are tuning in and joining us here. If you are, however, listening to us on Spotify, we welcome you as well. But this is going to be a test format to see if we can do live shows on Twitch and immediately follow that up with the Spotify drop the next day. I'd like to welcome everybody to the show. My name is Chris O'Mealy. I am the host of Club Kayfabe WrestleTalk, 1/3 of the hosts. Alongside with me, we have Dan Peck.
What it do, Chris?
And Glenn Kukan.
Yo, yo, yo.
And he is recovering from surgery.
I am, but I'm good.
But he's in good spirits. We haven't lost Glenn to the he hasn't done the Sami Zayn timeline.
Nope, I'm not going to be gone for 9 months.
He was literally gone for less than 24 hours. Literally less than 24 hours. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for supporting us via YouTube, via Facebook at CKCC Online. Follow us on Twitter. Thank you guys for tuning in on Spotify and the Filling the Void podcast network, who's been so gracious to host us and get us onto the Spotify system. Of course, if you can join the Club Kayfabe creative community and follow us on Facebook, you'll see more than just a pro wrestling podcast. You get the whole shebang, an entire community full of creative people, including CHMR's Ring Rust, starring Mark Jabroni, the Blake and Sal Show, as well as Clerk's Minute, which are Blake Riley's podcast, along with Sal Costa. MDX returning for a new season with Maurice Prophet and Danny Dang. The Cinefan podcast with Jeff Trilowitz. The Politically Incorrect Racing podcast for you NASCAR fans with Matt Hardman. And Jay Bunny's Music Hub with Jason Shin for you music aficionados. Also, check out Brian Beinman, our local artist, and Heather Quinn, our local cosplayer / unofficial model.
So basically what you're saying is you're taking a line right out of RVD's playbook and getting the whole damn show.
The whole damn show. Now, speaking of shows, we've got some wrestling to talk about here, but before we get to that, we have this week's trivia question with Dan Peck.
All right, this week's trivia question with TLC coming up next weekend. I'm going to ask you, who outside the original 6 TLC peoples, that would be Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys, and the Dudley Boys, who outside of them has been in the most TLC matches?
Make sure you post your answers.
And if you come up with the answer while you're listening live, post it in the chat room. We'll tell you if you're correct. So to kick off the show, I have an interesting little discussion I want to kind of get going here, and you guys can offer your thoughts. Over the week, Xavier Woods referred to wrestling fans as entitled infants. Mostly just because of the just dynamic of complaints and just people being unhappy and everything else. And I want to discuss this. Is Xavier Woods right? Are wrestling fans truly entitled infants?
Yes and no.
The ones that bitch all day and say they're not going to watch and then still watch, yes.
So here is as I've liked to say before, and I've said this discussing the very infamous now toxic Star Wars fandom. It's not so much that you're complaining, it's how you're complaining. And I've always felt like that's the key with any complaint in any type of situation. Yes, wrestling fans pay for their wrestling product in some capacity. You're paying for it. You're either paying for the WWE Network, or you're paying for a cable provider, or you're paying for internet. In some capacity, you are paying, and you are supporting the advertisers and everything. You're the consumer, and you should be getting the product that you want to see. And if you're consistently not getting a product that you feel is worth your money, you have every right in the world to express your opinion, because without wrestling fans, wrestling promotions wouldn't exist. Look at the AWA. What happened when they decided that their live attendance sucked so much they were going to run in an empty warehouse? How long did that last? Without the fans, the business truly isn't anything. And that's the same with anything. Bands aren't going to survive if people aren't buying tickets to concerts and buying their albums and everything. If any money, no one's going to keep supporting you if your movies are all terrible. So you know what I mean? Like, you have the right to complain. But, and this is where the big but comes in, and Glenn, Dan, and I have absolutely discussed this in the past. The complaints that wrestling fans drive in reach ridiculous points.
Yeah.
People literally want 12 simultaneous. AJ needs to be champion. Daniel Bryan needs to be champion. Finn Balor needs to be champion. Samoa Joe needs to be champion. Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. The list goes on. And they all somehow need to be champion at the same time. Likewise, everybody needs to be getting a push. Well, it doesn't work like that. You can only have one world champion, *2, but one world champion. You can only have one intercontinental champion. You can only have, one tag team champion. I know in WWE there's one on each show, but that's also the dynamic. On your roster, there's only a champion. So everybody can't be champion at once. Everybody can't be in the main event at once. It's not possible. So you can't just complain every single week when every single week, I cannot believe Shinsuke Nakamura is not in the main event again. But he's the U.S. champion. But he should be the world champion. Okay, but now Daniel Bryan's the world champion. Well, I think Samoa Joe should be the world champion. You can't make it just.
I mean, the reality is this hasn't changed. As long as I've been watching wrestling, it's been the same deal.
Oh, sure.
When I started watching, you had, basically Hogan as your top guy. But the thing that they did differently between the 80s and today, they had a lot of guys that were vying for the top spot.
Exactly.
Instead of rerunning the same match over and over and over again, they had a lot of guys that were constantly mixing it up. So, yeah, they could do a little more of that. But, I mean, the long and short answer of Xavier's comment is yes and no. Because, yes, there are a lot of entitled whiny brats out there. And then on the other flip side, like you said, everybody's entitled to their opinion. It's just a matter of how you give it.
Well, and then, of course, one thing I've always kind of said is if you're this dissatisfied for that long period of time,
don't watch.
You should stop watching.
Oh,
now I do understand.
Like I did. Oh.
Well, I also do understand the point that that's not always the easiest thing to do, and in my case, I feel like Raw absolutely is a chore now. So, but I can't stop watching it completely because there's still elements of the show that I like. So what I do is I put it on as background noise, and I do something else. When something happens on the show that I want to see, I pay attention. And when it's something I don't want to see, I don't watch it. And you know what? I'm happier that way.
And you know what? I think things are getting better in that vein because they're getting lower and lower ratings. In fact, the lowest ratings in Raw history this week.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I watch all the shows. I watch WWE, I watch Impact, I watch New Japan, Honor as I can. I watch them all. And, yeah, some of WWE stuff sucks. Plain and simple. Sucks.
I mean, hell, Vince rewrote last week's Raw just hours before it aired, and the results spoke for themselves.
Well, he also did the week before as well.
Yeah. And again, it speaks volumes right there.
Doesn't Vince do that every week for the entire 20...
Here's the thing about last week's. I think last week's, the reason why he did it was because with President Bush's passing, I think the original card had a lot of heels going over with a lot of heel heat. And I think because they were in Texas, because Bush had just passed, they wanted to give the crowd an uplift with a lot of babyface wins.
Sure.
So I can understand that. because you're playing to your crowd. I'm cool with that. But, you know, and I've said this multiple times this week. I think this past week's Raw was much better than the previous 2 weeks. Even though the ratings won't say so.
And I agree with that.
I think the ratings are more of a showing about how dissatisfied people were with the last week or the last segment, right? Because you don't turn off. You don't decide, oh, I'm gonna just not watch this week right before the show starts. No, you're like, hey, I didn't like last week. Why should I watch it the next week?
True.
I agree with that.
And that's why I kept telling everybody, I was like, you know, because they were saying that this was the worst rated Raw in history at, you know, I think it was like 2.2 million viewers. But everybody, if you read the comments when people were posting about that, it was like, yeah, that's kind of a shame because this was actually a really good show compared to the previous 2 weeks, which utterly blew.
That's exactly how it makes sense, too, you know?
Right.
That's exactly how I feel. Well, that show was so terrible, I'm not watching next week. And then you hear word that, oh, next week was better. Well, damn it, now I have to watch next week, so the ratings will probably go up. At least a little bit.
Maybe.
Maybe a smidge.
Their go-home shows have not exactly promising as of the last few months.
Last few years.
But again, it goes back to the whole... And the other problem with WWE, and I've said this, I've been saying this for years, there's too much that they expect you to dedicate your time to. They want you to watch 3 hours of Raw, then 2 hours of SmackDown, plus Mixed Match Challenge. Then they have a 3-hour block on Wednesday they want you to watch. Plus, they've got their reality shows when those are happening.
It's 4 hours now.
Oh, jeez.
Because it's two UK episodes, NXT and 205.
Right. Well, there you go. And that's too much time. And they got to... I know they think people just stick with them, but no, people watch other wrestling content. If you're a wrestling fan, you watch wrestling content. It's not like, I mean, how many football fans do you know also watch college ball?
A lot.
It's not just the NFL.
Like, I wake up at the crack of dawn to watch New Japan.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. Like, if you're a fan of something, you're going to watch other things. You know, I know plenty of racing fans. They don't just watch the NASCAR, what is it now, the Sprint Cup or whatever? It was Winston Cup when I was watching it, but that ain't a thing anymore.
I think it's Monster Energy.
I can't keep track of this crap anymore. Matt Hardman, give me the answer here, man. You're the racing expert.
I didn't watch any this year because it was just atrocious last year.
We used to go to races all the time. They had the Bush League. And
we would always still have. And that's Xfinity now. I know that.
Yeah. We would always watch that race.
Yeah.
You make the whole weekend event out of it. And it's like, it's the NXT of NASCAR.
The second tier of racing is the younger kids that were trying to make a name for themselves. So they always try the people on the in the Winston Cup.
Huh? Who does that sound like?
It's funny, but then again, you also had you had better racing in the Bush League, and then you had really good racing in the early days of the Winston because you had all of the best racers ever. Nowadays, a lot of the racers, I probably couldn't even rattle off 5 racers' names from this past season because I was just like, who the fuck are all these people? Everybody's getting older, everybody's retiring.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying, though.
Well, they also changed the rules and they made it retarded, so.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that when you're a fan of something, you're going to...
But you watch it, yeah.
Okay,
I get like you were saying. Not only did I watch that, but I also I would watch NASCAR. I would watch Indy. I would watch Formula One. I would watch drag racing. I watched also monster truck racing. I watched all that stuff.
Oh, I used to love monster trucks. All right, here's a good comparison: video gaming. I love video games. What consoles do I own? Well, I own a PlayStation 4 and I own a Nintendo Switch. And Nintendo's going to give me their exclusives and everything, but PlayStation's going to give me stuff too. Well, I'm going to play both because I want to play both. I know that they're going to compete with each other to try and win a gamer like me over. But
actually, they won't. Nintendo and Sony are no.
Nintendo decided to stop competing when they decided to make the Wii.